Hi, I'm Carol Kirkwood, and did you notice how cold it was last night? We just actually had the coldest night of this season so far, and if anything, it's going to get colder by day and by night as we go through the next few days and nights. But we saw some lovely wintry scenes like this one in a Boyne in Aberdeenshire. We've had some snow, quite a bit of snow actually across parts of northern Scotland in the last few days. Some of that has been thundery, and today you'll find it is travelling south, eventually getting in to northern England. Also some wintry showers moving across Northern Ireland, Wales and down the east coast, and by wintry showers I mean a mixture of rain, sleet and snow, but in between a lot of dry weather, a fair bit of sunshine today, but boy, it's going to feel cold, especially if you're exposed to the wind across the north and the east. The wind chill will make it feel sub-zero for some.
Hi guys, welcome back to the 401 Files. It's an absolute pleasure, as I always say, to be joined by so many like-minded people from all around the world. I've brought you back today to a place that we have explored before. This was last year, and it's a place that has dogman sightings, creepy stories and evidence, cases of human mutilation, animal mutilation, UFOs and extraterrestrials, and everything in between. This is Dalby Forest, a large forested area situated on the east coast of Britain, and we're going to spend the night here tonight and explore this chilly day. As you can see behind me, I'll just focusing on this, the lake is completely frozen over. I'm not sure how thick the ice will be. I wouldn't like to try it, but yeah, it's very picturesque, which is usually the case with these areas of high strangeness. They usually are very picturesque places, and what makes this very special is if you are into the David Paulides missing 411 cases, this will be no surprise. It's a national park. So a lot of people frequent in this area, this national park, year in, year out, and many different stories of high strangeness coming from this area, like I said in the beginning. It's always fascinated me why national parks, but it makes sense when you think about the large areas, large forested areas and open expanses that these places cover, that something should be living or trying to remain hidden in these areas. It makes perfect sense. The difficulty that I've got today is that it's so cold trying to hold the tripod with the metal extendable legs. It's really making my hands seize up, and they're not functioning the way they should be. So, and I'm sure that my mouth isn't functioning the way it should be as well. I'm struggling to get words out and say things that I want to say to camera, but these are just some of the problems that you have to face when filming in cold weather. So I take my hat off to you guys in the US, places like Canada, that get out and talk about like Sasquatch and things like that, because I know that your temperatures drop a lot lower than what we get here in the UK, and it must be hard work. It's challenging. I was thinking about something earlier, and it's quite weird but also interesting, is when I try to think of winter sightings that are notable, like some of the notorious sightings. We've got Roswell, we've got Rendlesham Forest, we've got the aerial school sighting, and there's just so many more, but all of these seem to happen in very warm climates or countries like Mexico, parts of the US, and you know, it's like Africa if we're talking about the aerial school sighting there. But the only one really that I can think of that's notable and happened during a cold time of year was Rendlesham. I think that was like 1980 Christmas time, or it was the day before Christmas or something like that. Very cold time of year. But I'm struggling to find any more sightings or notable cases that happened in winter. Now there will be some, I'm not saying that they don't exist, there will be some, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, does climate, does weather have an impact on when these things visit Earth? I mean, we could argue that yes, Roswell is a warm place, like, you know, it's the desert, but we only know about Roswell because of a storm, which would be bad weather. I'm not sure what I'm trying to get at here. Maybe it's just, I don't know, it seems like, I mean, my experience of this thing walking through the woods was a hot summer's day. It just seems like all the notable, all the notorious cases happen in hot countries or warm climated areas. Very rarely do we have stories to talk about that happened in the middle of winter. Like, how many UFO stories or extraterrestrial sightings do we know where there was snow on the ground, bar Rendlesham? I'm struggling to think of any. You guys comment below and let me know, because it seems to me, as I'm saying this, that climate and weather is favoured by these things. You can see two trees here, look, that have been upturned by the Forestry Commission. They've engraved some little children's faces on there to make it a bit more entertaining. But you know, there is a lot of reports, real life reports of people finding this in the middle of nowhere, these upturned trees stuck in the ground. Now, like I said, this is for entertainment purposes, done by the Forestry Commission, but if you was to come across this in the middle of nowhere, you know, it would be a scary sight to see, because nothing would do that naturally. Nothing would embed a tree so deep into the ground that it would support itself upside down like that. Yeah, I've been fascinated. Out of all the Bigfoot things that people claim, like the tree knocking to try and go Bigfoot in, the whoops, anything that, like, you know, this is the one thing that really does baffle me, is upturned trees that are dug so deep into the ground like this, and found in the middle of nowhere. That's what fascinates me the most. Hopefully one day I'll be lucky enough to come across some real upturned trees and document that for you guys. But right now, like I said, these are just for entertainment purposes, done by the Forestry Commission. But it does make you think, why?
Nothing throws rocks out here except for humans and Bukwus, the wild man of the woods, the male Sasquatch. And if they're really threatened, they'll shake foliage or they'll push over dead foliage. And it's documented with chimpanzees, mountain gorillas, orangutans, monkeys, that they do these primate characteristics and acts when they feel threatened. But it's also found in Europe, Asia, even down in the South Pacific, Australia, they call it Yowie, and so forth.
The more I think about extraterrestrial life, the more I believe that there is a good chance that intelligent extraterrestrial life will look a lot like us. Different species independently evolve in similar patterns and would likely do the same on other planets. The things which we regard as most important, cognitive sophistication, large brains, intelligence, and even tool making, are all convergent. If there are other planets that look a lot like Earth, and the Kepler spacecraft is now showing us that there are, then the likelihood of human-like extraterrestrials on those planets isn't a huge stretch. If the outcome of evolution is broadly predictable, then what applies here on Earth will also apply across the Milky Way and far beyond.
So one of the big names that I'm sure a lot of you people here on the channel will be familiar with is Tony Dodd. Tony Dodd did a lot of investigative work in this area, you know, at Dalby Forest and other surrounding areas on the northeast of England, mainly touching on things like mutilations, human and animal mutilations. I've spoke to you guys about this before on the channel, but Tony Dodd was a very, very brave man. He had his life threatened multiple times because of some of the sensitive subjects that he was talking about. And even one story recalls when Tony was out of the country, he was going to a UFO conference somewhere abroad, and these weird looking people confronted Tony Dodd and told him that the information you're sharing is not for public knowledge, and we can get rid of you whether you're in the UK or not. So be very careful about what you choose to discuss. So his life and his reputation was always being thrown under the bus. You know what I mean? People was always trying to discredit him, and it's the same with every one of these cases. Like, you know, you look at people like Alan Godfrey. He was ex-police officer as well. Tony Dodd was, and they silenced Alan Godfrey about what he'd experienced. But in this very location where I am right now, this is where human and animal mutilations were discovered. And when I say discovered, we're not talking about, you know, one body found here and then 5 miles away another one was found under mysterious circumstances. We're talking about a 20 metre by 20 metre square with multiple mutilated animals in there, and even humans, under very suspicious circumstances. Now that just doesn't, you know, that doesn't occur. That is not natural. Like, what is going on? And that is the work that Tony Dodd was undertaking. So you can see now why people like the CIA and other secret organizations were trying to silence him. But very brave guy, and he led the way for a very long time in ufology, in trying to bring these subjects to the surface for people like myself and you guys watching.
Unexplained livestock mutilations have been reported for centuries. Explanations range from everything between common predators to UFOs. The animal's ears, eyes, udders, anus, sex organs, and even tongues have all routinely been removed, seemingly with a sharp cleaned instrument. Their carcasses have often been drained of blood, with no tracks or footprints in the immediate vicinity, nor were any of the usual opportunistic scavengers. Reports of such unexplained mutilations have been carried out on both humans and animals, and have baffled investigators for decades, leading to speculation about whether or not the perpetrators might be otherworldly beings conducting biological experiments on some of Earth's inhabitants.
I'm really looking forward to nightfall. It's been a while since I've done an overnight winter's camp, like when it's been this cold. But there's definitely such a sense of achievement more when you camp out in the winter and it's cold, like say there's snow on the ground. You always feel like, I don't know, it takes you back to your ancestral days of being like a caveman. I love that. And when you get back in the morning, like to your warm house, or you're in the car with the heating on, and you're reflecting on last night's camp, you feel so much more accomplished. Granted, I have got really, really good kit. Like, my sleeping bag is down, and my airbed is the X-Therm, which is really, really good. You know, a lot of the time, if you're out camping and you're wild camping, if you've got a bad airbed beneath you, you'll lose all that heat to the ground. Whereas with my airbed, it's got this technology inside it that's like pyramids, and they all have reflective surfaces. So once your body heat starts leaving to go into the ground, it hits these reflective pyramids and comes right back at you. And it's just such a weird thing. For anyone that does get out there camping, I highly recommend the X-Therm airbed, because when you lie on that thing, you'll be like, oh my God, like it's like a radiator. And that's all your heat that you'd be losing into the ground, coming back and keeping you warm. So when I say that I'm like a caveman, I don't really mean that I'm roughing it as such like they would have done, but it's just nice to be out when there's snow on the ground, camping under the stars. And I think we will have a few stars tonight because the sky is crystal clear. I'm really looking forward to it.
As nightfall creeps in, I become extremely aware that humans are not suited to the dark. We are generally diurnal creatures, and our senses are not meant for nighttime activity, and so our imagination, combined with sensory deprivation, can cause us to imagine the worst case scenarios. Being in the dark means that we cannot see the real or imagined dangers that are in our midst, and because of this, we feel extremely vulnerable and exposed. Mundane things that we would otherwise ignore during the day can easily startle or even frighten us whenever we're trapped in the dark. I can only imagine then what effect the human mind would undergo if that threat was actually real and the experience was one that you couldn't even comprehend.
Hi guys, I'm not sure how well you can all hear me. I've just come into the woods, sat down, dropped my bag and got my little lantern set up at the side of me. It's absolutely freezing. The forecast did predict that the temperature would be dropping significantly as the night progresses, but my God, it's extremely cold. I've not even checked how cold it is on my phone right now. I'm trying to preserve the battery as best I can so I can get the filming done and use this as an emergency point of call if I need to. Hopefully, fingers crossed I won't, but yeah, it is extremely cold. I'm gonna get a hot drink on right now because I need to get something warm inside me as this temperature begins to drop and drop even further. So Lily's got her collar on, her illuminated collar, just for anyone that's interested. The colours tonight is green. Last time we had red, tonight it's green. So if you do see any green lights running through the trees behind me, it's likely to be Lily. Yeah, so far so good. The night came in pretty quick, and I've been stressed, I won't lie, trying to get the tap set up and things with my hands being so cold. I've been really stressed trying to get the ridge line up and peg that thing down because it is quite windy. Hopefully it's not showing too much on the video. I've had to crouch down behind a tree right now just so you guys can hear me. All the recordings before this was just far too windy. You could hardly hear a thing I was saying. But yeah, I've struggled with the tap. I've got that up now. And like I've said, I'm just going to get a hot drink on and talk to you guys through the night. So I've tried to place the phone on the tripod. It gives me a lot more options when it comes to camera angles and shooting myself, going through my bag and putting the hot cup of tea on and things like that. It gives me a lot more options with the phone being on the tripod. The only problem I have is that when I do that, it's picking up far too much wind because it's out in the open. So right now I'm being forced to record behind a tree and with the phone quite closely tucked into me, so I'm shielding it from the wind, which is making filming a little bit difficult. I must say I'm really impressed with Lily's light. I can see her off at a distance right now. Lily, come. I just want to show you guys the colour so you are familiar with. There we are. Good girl. Yeah, so far so good. Like I said, it is freezing. It's going to be a hell of a long night ahead of me. I think now the time is only about, it's probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock, something like that, so it's still quite an early night. But the majority of my night tonight is going to be fighting against the cold because this frost on the floor, underneath the tarp, it's not going to be pleasant. I mean, I have got the kit for it. I've got a really warm Four Seasons kit, like sleeping bags and air beds that I can lie on, and that's going to really help me through tonight, but there's no getting away from the wind chill, unfortunately. And the noise of that tarp as well might keep me awake, so who knows. I usually would bring earplugs if this was like a standard camp on a campsite that was designated for people to go there and pitch up, but there's no way that I'm wearing earplugs in a place like this. No way. I want to hear everything. So yeah. Hopefully you guys, wherever you are in the world right now, are enjoying this video and you're having a great night, a great evening, great day, whatever it may be. I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported the channel. And yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a hell of a journey. We've learned things together along the way. We've made mistakes, as I always say in the start of my videos. But ultimately, we've kept moving forward and we've progressed. Our understanding of these things and how they come about, I believe, has improved. When we first set out 5 years ago, we were just talking and speculating about these things. But right now, we seem to have a better understanding. We don't know all the facts. We never will, I don't believe. But it's certainly interesting. And I've been helped along the way as well in my education on these subjects with you guys always down in the comments and stuff. It really does help when we're all bouncing off each other like this and sharing theories. But that's enough of me waffling, guys. I'm going to get some hot food on and a cup of tea. I've said this before, but I'm really going to quickly just throw this in there once more, is that when I'm filming like this, the light on the phone is shining at me, and that's why I'm illuminated. Granted, I've got this little lantern in my hand right as well, this little thing here. But the downside to that is that behind the camera right now, I can't see anything. It's pitch black. And so technically something could be stood only a few meters away from me and I would have no idea. That's a terrifying thought. Anyway, you guys keep back, like I say, wherever you are, stay warm, because where I am right now, I'd love to be where you are, in the warmth of your house, under the covers. Let me take one for the team. You guys keep back, relax, and enjoy. I'm just looking up through the tree canopy right now, and I can quite distinctly see the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades constellation. And whenever I'm out and it's a clear night, that is always the constellation that I tend to gravitate to, because in my opinion, that's where they're coming from. You know, there will be many other constellations out there where life forms are leaving and returning day in, day out. No doubt about that. But the one that keeps cropping up, if we go off eyewitness testimonies and abduction claims, is the Pleiades constellation. You know, a lot of these people come back and report that these beings come from around that area. So I always look up at that and just think, that is where they are, as well as many other places. Can you imagine living close to the Seven Sisters? Like, how weird that would be. I mean, to us, the cluster of stars, the Pleiades cluster, it looks very, very close, but in reality, those stars are light years apart. However, I wonder what it's like being on a planet orbiting one of those. Like, do you still get all the light from the other stars? Because to us, from this far, from this distance, it looks like they're relatively close. But yeah, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it, if you could just teleport or transport yourself to that area and see what life around that cluster is like. We only have the one sun, really, you know, that comes up and goes down at the end of every day, at the beginning of every day. But being up somewhere like that must be an absolutely breathtaking scene. The thing I don't understand, though, is that a lot of the alien greys, you know, the grey aliens with the big black wraparound eyes, they are reported to come from that area as well. And I always assumed that they have big black eyes because wherever they're from, they live far away from their home star. And the light is obviously minimal, and we know here on Earth all the nocturnal creatures have huge eyes to allow as much light in as possible. So I thought that these grey aliens with the big black wraparound eyes must live in a very dark environment, and that's why they have the need for huge black eyes to absorb any minimal light that is around. But if they're coming from the Seven Sisters, that kind of doesn't work, because you would expect it to be really bright up there and with lots of light around, but what do I know? Crazy that this video picks up the stars. It's insane. I'm not complaining. Some lights over there in the distance. I'm not sure what that is. My initial thought, well, that's Lily, obviously the green one, and she's really close to me, but those two white lights seem really far from the distance. My original thought just then was maybe a road, but they don't seem to be moving, and they're not constant, they keep going on and off, and one of them just got really bright, so I have no idea what that is. Try and zoom in. Seems like there's three now as well, like there's a middle one turning up. It's weird, there's like hints of blue in there. There's a third light as well, like in the middle, that's just joined. I have no idea what that is. It's too far for me to go investigate, and it's definitely not stars. We're looking at ground level here right across the horizon, but it seems too far from the distance for me to go over that way and investigate. And holding my hands out like this with the camera, I'm struggling because they're so cold. But yeah, I have no idea what that is at this point. Wow. Good girl. Good girl. My hands. I'm gonna have to put my hands in my pocket for a little while, just so I can get them warmed up again.
As I settled in for the night, I couldn't help but think back over some of the weird stories that have been reported in this area. Occasionally, my thoughts would be drawn to the sounds of my tarp flapping around in the wind. Tucked up in my sleeping bag, I laid there on the forest floor just listening to the many sounds happening all around me. And as the night slowly slipped away, I had no further thoughts other than to stay warm and drift deeply into a peaceful sleep.